Hello, everyone. I'm not sure how shocked or not people might be at seeing a pirate on their screen. Um, Please don't be distracted too much by this. You'll be looking at the slides most of the time anyway. I had an eye issue which the NHS sorted out double quick really well, but I'm kind of uh, got to wear this for about 10 days, but it's all recovering great, so that's all good. I'm just going to pause just for a moment in case anybody's having trouble joining or running late. If anybody wants to fill in that moment, here's a little quiz. Why do pirates wear eye patches? Um, the clue is it's not what the reason you normally think. Okay, no right answers yet. The question I posed was, why did pirates wear eye patches? And everyone assumes it's because they kind of got injured in battles and things. But in fact, the reason is that what they did for a living, sort of, was to attack ships on the open seas. And what they had to do was fight their way across the open decks in the bright sunshine, and then go down where there's no light. So at that stage, they'd switch the eye patch to the other eye. So this eye was used to the dark, and they could carry on fighting. Here you are,
Interesting.
a nugget for the pub quiz.
You learn something every day.
Yeah, something actually much more interesting than tax, maybe. Okay. Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Malcolm Veal from Naked Accounting, and we're very lucky this month, I should say. I don't do these every week. We're doing webinars on Making Tax Digital, which is looming now, only 3 months away or 4 months, depending on how you count them. And we're very lucky this week to be joined by James from Hammock. Hammock is the best landlord software, and James is kindly giving a quick demonstration of how it can work. So welcome, James. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, I'll just run through uh, an overall presentation on Making Tax Digital and the implications, etc., etc. I'll be going slightly quicker if anybody's attended the previous ones to make sure James has got the time that he needs to do the demonstration. So, without further ado, I'll share my screen and we'll move on. Okay, interesting. Right, that's me running on a zero certified chartered accountant. We run a digital only accounting firm, not just acting for landlords, acting for sole traders, tax return clients, limited companies, startups, that kind of thing. But today is not about people starting ventures with venture capital or does my granny need to do a tax return? It's focused purely on landlords and self-employed and making tax digital. There's a lot of awareness of making tax digital now, but probably not a huge amount of understanding. The revenue guidance is probably good, but it's quite long because they have to cover all the points. So I'm going to try and fire through things as quickly as I can. It says typed questions in the chat. It says Q&A. There should be a Q&A button. If you want to pop things into the Q&A, then that's the place to put them. And I'll deal with them either at the end or if that's not possible for time reasons or whatever, then we'll do it by follow up with an email or whatever. Okay. Tax returns changed 25 years ago. They went from assessment to self-assessment. Those who've been around long enough in the tax world will remember all that, but never mind that. This is, in a sense, a much bigger change. And it's not something that HMRC came up with in a dark room. It's actually UK tax joining the modern world. You think it's what we're going to talk about later as intrusive. In some countries, for example, all business-to-business payments go through the government, so they don't trust them, I suppose. They're making it very intrusive into business world. And a lot of people whinged about this, the whole thing about making tax digital, and it's been postponed more than once, but it's not going away this time. It's definitely happening. Who knows who is ready? These figures are a bit out of date. It's not such a recent survey, but earlier in the year, 31% of self-employed traders had never heard of making tax digital. 32% had heard about it, but they weren't planning to do anything about it for now. Maybe they'll do it later. And more shockingly, at that stage, 42% of accountants were not prepared for Making Tax Digital, and 41% were somewhat prepared. That's 83%. That was truly shocking. Making Tax Digital is not something to be frightened of. It's not difficult, as long as you just use systems. Now, does it apply to me? That's what everyone asks. First of all, if you're trading through a limited company, no, it doesn't. And if you're trading through a partnership, and a partnership, if you're renting property, it doesn't just mean joint ownership. It has to be a trading partnership. If you've got questions on that point, then do follow up later. But if you're trading through a limited company, it's not applicable. It's for income tax, not for corporation tax. If you have incomes, and I'll talk about what makes up the income figure in a moment, of more than 50,000, it's not profit, it's total gross income, then you will be in Making Tax Digital, we mandated, that's the jargon, as of April 26. If your income is lower, then if you're over 30,000, you will be mandated, you will have to have digital systems as of April 27. And the same thing happens again for people with incomes of over 20,000, and they will be mandated as of April 28. Now, the limits are for business plus lettings. So it's not profits, it's rents. Not after you've offset mortgage interest and insurance and repairs, it's just rent levels. Plus sales or fees if you're a consultant, or however you like to call it, gross income if you're self-employed. And if you're a landlord and you're self-employed, you add those two numbers together to see which band you're in. A lot of confusion about this. And these numbers, that 50,000, HMRC are not guessing at it. It's not for you to say, oh, look, I think I'm over 50,000. They're going to take those figures off your tax returns, your self-assessment tax returns. And if you're in MTD, you may only have one more self-assessment tax return to go, because they're changing it all for people inside MTD. What does it actually mean? First of all, there's the digital record rekeeping requirement. In other words, you have to have digital books, records. That is something which may come as a shock. I think it's coming as more of a shock to landlords than it is to self-employed traders. And a lot of people think this is not fair, but fair or not, that's where we are. And quarterly filings. I should change the word filing. They changed it. It's called quarterly updates now. So at the moment you do one tax return a year. Now you'll do 4, and then a 5th every year. What's the digital record? And this is applying to landlords and to self-employed businesses. You have to record income and costs in the digital record. You have to record what they were, costs, what type of cost it was. You don't just add up total costs. You have to record what type of cost it is. And you have to record when you made the sales, when you received the rent, when you paid your suppliers, when you paid for repairs on the property. And you have to have details of the transactions. At the moment, unless they change the regulations, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to include the names of your suppliers, that kind of thing. Although why you would choose not to, I can't imagine. If you have a decent system, it'll capture all that anyway. And software. Paper records, well, that's history. You cannot use paper records of any sort anymore once you're mandated, once you're in MTD, unless you want to pay somebody else to type that in for you. I think you're talking to the wrong guys if you're on this webinar. We've been using, in our practice, we've been using systems that would have been quite capable of doing Making Tax Digital 10, 15 years ago even. Yeah, maybe even 15 years ago. Obviously, they didn't have the linkage to HMRC systems, but that's the way we work. You may find people who are prepared to rekey it for you, and we would recommend real software. Certainly, software that's built for the purpose, software that's built so that you can meet your obligations with kind of almost minimal, and in some cases almost nil effort, as James will demonstrate. There are workarounds with spreadsheets. If you want to continue with spreadsheets, um, my advice, just don't go there. If you're wedded to using a spreadsheet you've been using for 20 years, you can pay for some extra software to link that to HMRC. If you want to do that, that's not naked accounting's way. And choosing software. Software is in brackets because you probably will need two, one of which you won't use at all. The other will be used by your accountant. HMRC launched a tool to choose the right software. I think James may confirm this. It's been improved a lot. But when they first launched it, it would be a good thing if it wasn't rubbish, or it would have been a good thing if it hadn't been rubbish. When I tested it out, it recommended a great piece of kit as an all-in-one solution when I know that the version that non-accountants can use does not include the year-end return that you have to do. Yeah, it also recommended a landlord software to a sole trader business. That was actually Hammock, James. I think they fixed that. It doesn't say that anymore. And it recommends some other softwares that I can tell you, not with a barge pole. I wouldn't go near some of the softwares they recommend. In our practice, we've chosen best of breed. We'd go with the best software and we put it in place for clients. And we would not, the cash flow, that means nothing. This word cash flow, that was an accounting software that was a competitor to the cloud softwares. Just don't go there. Okay. Now, if you're trading, self-employed, we recommend a great piece of kit called Dext Solo. Bit difficult to say. Dext Solo. It's designed for solo, for sole traders, self-employed, freelancers. And if we set it up for you properly, all you need to do is take pictures of receipts, and if you've got invoices for costs, forward them. And you can raise your sales invoices inside the system and send them online from Dext Solo to your customers. And you'll know which customers have paid and not paid. So virtually a no-brainer, I would have said. I mean, there may be other softwares that will do this, but we've picked the best, Dext Solo. Now, when it comes to letting income, there's only one choice, really. Hammock. Normally, I talk more about this, but I'll leave this to James. You can add in your properties, you'll see the properties, you'll see valuation estimates, and you connect it to your bank, and Hammock will sort it all out for you. And the great thing today is that James is here. So, James, I'll stop the share, and if you want to share your screen.
Yes, I will do.
I think to be honest, that you're the reason that people are here today.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but let's go. So I'm sharing my screen, so hopefully you can all see it. So yeah, I'm going to give everybody a quick run through the software. Now the truth is, Hammock is a really simple software, so it doesn't take a long time. So I'm going to probably be about 20 minutes, and I'll probably be able to show you almost everything. Just one thing I will say ahead of time. So I'm the head of business development at Hammock. I've been at Hammock since day one. I was the first employee, so I've done the entire journey for the last 6 or 7 years. And I'm also a landlord myself, actually. So all the people who started Hammock, we are all landlords. So we do kind of know this stuff, and we build it. We build this to solve our own pain points and hope that everyone else will agree. And on that point, we did not build Hammock for making tax digital. Okay, so yes, it absolutely solves for it, but I would like to think it does a lot more than just solve for
Certainly does.
digital. And I think, and Malcolm, you've probably heard this, right? I hear from a lot of landlords, when they talk about making tax digital, that it seems like more work and more cost for no benefit. And I have some sympathy with that view, and especially like the quarterly filings, etc. But one thing I would definitely say if you choose Hammock is there is absolutely benefits to digitization. Whether it's saving time or just knowing what's going on better with your business. So hopefully I'll be able to show you that today. So what I want to do, I want to take you through a demo of the software. So for the next 15 minutes, will be a landlord called Mike Casson. Okay, and this is my Hammock account. And I'm currently on the properties page. And you can see some basic information here. So you can see that I've got 3 properties. And if we scroll down, You can see I've got three properties in my account. These pictures, by the way, I haven't added those. They just get pulled in from Google Street View. It does not help you with your bookkeeping, but landlords do tell me they think it looks nice, which is great. And really, it's giving me some kind of basic information. So, how much money am I actually making per property, or in this case, not making? And spoiler alert, that's because I'm gonna track some transactions, and this is suddenly going to change. But it tells me as a landlord how I'm doing, how much money I'm making. It also tells me if any of my tenants owe me money. Um, but you're probably looking at this and going, okay, that looks cool, but where have these numbers come from? And sort of as Malcolm kind of kindly mentioned before, this comes from your bank feed. So to show you how the bookkeeping works, and I will come back and show you how these figures have changed, we're going to jump over to the transaction page. Now, hoping most of you on who are watching this or live or recording have heard of open banking. But open banking is just a government approved safe way to essentially share a digital version of your bank statement with a third party like Hammock. So there's no access to your funds, there's no access to your passwords. We can't, there's nothing in terms of your actual bank account. But what you will get, because you can see Mike has connected his bank here, you will get all of your transactions feeding through so that you can click on them, categorize them, and every day this will update and pull in any new transactions. Now, that is the most common way to use Hammock is through a live bank feed, but it's not the only way. You can also, if you prefer, you can upload a spreadsheet of transactions. It takes a bit more time, but some people feel more comfortable with that, or maybe they don't have online banking. So you can use the upload to create a manual bank feed. Either way, once the transactions come through, whether they're a live feed or an upload, they operate in exactly the same way. Um, and one big thing we know about landlords is that a lot of landlords do not have a dedicated bank account for their rental income and expenses. Now, I would always recommend one. It makes everything easier, and it means if you were ever investigated by HMRC, they wouldn't get access to your personal spending. But equally, I know there will be landlords who will not do that in time. Hammock is designed with that in mind, so you do not need to worry. And actually, if you look at Mike's transactions, a lot of these, the majority of these are personal. You've only got to look at the first two, like Tesco, Superdrug, etc. Right? So the way Hammock works is when you connect your bank feed, it will assume all of your transactions are personal unless you tell it otherwise. So unless you categorize your transactions, and anything you can see here with a green category, those are transactions I've categorized. Everything else is ignored. Okay. But I do want to show you how the bookkeeping works and how we then get those figures to feed through to the screen I showed you before and then further to the MTD submission. Um, and obviously by this point, you could see I've already added in my properties. I've already added in my basic tenancy information as well. So I can now start categorizing my transactions and linking them to the relevant properties and tenants. And so I'm going to give you two examples. Now they're both rental income, but one is rent that I collect directly from a tenant. So I self-manage, they pay me directly. The other one is a tenant where I use a letting agent. So they pay the agent pays me, but they obviously take their fees and sometimes other deductions as well. And I want to show you how that works because I'm sure we've got landlords of all sizes and types watching this. So I'll start with the tenant who pays direct. And what I want to do is I want to find those rent payments amongst all my other transactions. And the easiest way to do that is to use these filters at the top. And there's lots of ways you can filter. They're all very useful. But by far and away for me, the most useful is the keyword filter. And actually, if I search for the word Butland, because I've got a tenant called Tom Butland, and like a lot of tenants, he puts his name in the reference. So, yeah, and there is always a keyword you can search for. You will know, thinking of your own transactions, what that would be. But in my case, I search Butler and it brings up all of my rents. And you'll notice I've chosen to start my bank feed from April this year. You can go back up to 3 years, but I say most people choose the start of the tax year. So we've got the transactions. Now we just need to categorize them. And all you do is you just click on any one of them. And as soon as you do, the box on the right hand side will update, will open with our income categories. And you can see these are all tailored for landlords. So if I had a tenant deposit, I could track that. If I've got some furnished holiday let income, I could track that. Most of the time, though, it will be rental income, which is what we're going to choose. Then we tell the system which property it's for, 25 New Church Road, and then which tenant, which is Tom, and click save. And that is how easy it is to track a single transaction. But obviously, I want to track all of these transactions. So that's where this really useful button over here comes in, where it asks, do you want to find and track more rent from Tom? And if you do, you click the search and track button. And when we do that, Everything else has a little tick box, which is why I think it's so useful to search by keyword, because now we can actually select all of them together and update all of them together. So in literally a couple of seconds, you can do all of, your rent for Tom, and then you could search for your mortgage and track all of those, and then search for your insurance and track all of those. Very, very easy to do in bulk. Even better than that, now the system knows what Tom's rent looks like this month in December. When that rent comes in, it's just going to track itself. Same with all my regular expenses. So, I said I'm a landlord myself, only a small landlord, but almost all my transactions track themselves because they are literally the same every month or every quarter. Um, However, the one type of transaction that is slightly different are those letting agent payments, because as we discussed, the money that hits your bank account is net of fees, right? And sometimes net of other things. So I'm going to find the transaction and I'm going to use the date filter this time, really just to show you a different way of navigating. So I could have just searched for the word moving because my agent is called Moving On, but I've searched by date instead. Now, this is for a tenant of mine called Mary. Um, and we're going to try, and Mary pays 1,200 a month and the agent takes 10%. But we're going to track this, and Hammock is going to split this automatically. And that's because um, when you add your tenancy information into Hammock, um, well, you tell the system that the use the, I guess, the important information. So when I added the tenancy for Tom, I just said that he lived at 25 New Church Road. He paid 1,100 a month and I self-manage, right? So I collect the rent myself. Really, really straightforward. With Mary, when I added her tenancy, I said she lives at 141 Corn Street. She pays 1,200 a month. I use an agent and they charge 10%, right? So you build it into the tenancy. Really, really straightforward. So now, if we just copy the exact thing we did with Tom, this time we click on it, we tell the system again that it's a rent payment, that it's for Corn Street, that it's for Mary. And again, Hammock knows Mary, rent 1,200, agent charges 10%. So when I save that transaction, it splits it for me automatically. So it knows that what that really means is 1,200 of rent, 120 of fees. Just like Tom, though, every month going forward, when my agent pays me that normal amount, it will recognize it, it will track it, it will split it. Happy days. By the way, as a landlord, I just get a notification letting me know my rent's been paid. However, that's great most of the time, but on average, two or three times a year, you will get a payment which also includes some repairs or a gas certificate or some additional fees that you've been charged by your agent. So what do you do then? And I'm going to jump forward to December, because that's exactly what happened this month. I had some repairs on the property. I didn't get the full amount. So this is one of those few transactions which won't track itself, right? So I do have to do something, but all we do is the same thing we've just done twice before. We click on it, we tell the system that it's a rent payment, that it's for Corn Street, that it's for Mary, except this time Hammock kindly pops up and tells me, well, that's less than we're expecting. And then it asks a simple question, would you like to create an expense for that difference? Now, obviously I had some repairs, so I'm going to click yes. You just pick the expense category, which is almost always something within maintenance. And then within maintenance, you can see it could be all kinds of things, all tailored to landlords. So it could be gas certificate, cleaning, whatever. We're going to go repairs. And actually worth saying, obviously in this case, all of that 212 was repairs, but if it wasn't, if it was made up of multiple things, you can just click multiple expenses and add as many as you like. But in my case, that was all repairs. We click save. It still splits that transaction for me, but now it knows it's rent, fees, repairs. And in terms of bookkeeping, honestly, it's that simple. What you can do once you've categorized something, completely optional, but if you want to, you can add notes to transactions. So I could say, had to fix the boiler. You can also attach that agent statement, that receipt, that invoice, if you want to keep fully digital records. Neither of these, by the way, are a requirement of MTD, but lots of landlords do like to do it. And I guess the final thing that's probably worth you knowing is, what do you do when maybe you pay for something in cash, receive something in cash, and that transaction just isn't in your bank feed, so you don't have a transaction to track, or you just add it manually. So all you need to do is just click here, add transaction manually, choose whether it's an income or expense, and you fill in the details yourself. And actually, if I clear my filters, it's very easy to spot when you've added a manual because it gives you a big blue button that says manual. So look, I should have said this at the start, but if anyone has any questions as I'm running through this, obviously feel free to pop them in the Q&A and we'll cover them at the end. But yeah, in terms of bookkeeping, it really is that straightforward. You just need to categorize your property transactions. Anything regular and recurring will then start to track itself, and you'll just be picking up those odd one-off expenses to make sure your records are up to date and your bookkeeping's up to date. So how does that feed through? So I want to jump back to the page we started on, which is the properties page. Um, and now you're looking here and you can see because I've tracked those additional rent payments, suddenly this 25 New Church is no longer in loss, it's now in profit. And also my arrears have cleared, except this property down here, I am still in arrears. And that's because we are tracking rent to a specific tenancy. So Hammock will be able to tell you if your tenants owe you money, and you can go into each tenancy individually in the tenancy section and you can see a full breakdown of that number. So again, not so much a tax thing, it's just a management of your properties and making sure your tenants are up to date. Um, but let's talk about another really big thing with landlords. And I think probably one of the biggest reasons why it's so important to choose a software that is built for you. And that is because not everybody owns their properties in just their own name. And that's exactly the situation here. So Mike is the landlord who's registered to Hammock, and Mike has got three properties in his account, as we've seen here. But he doesn't own all these three properties in just his name. He's got one that he owns 50-50 with his wife, one that he owns just in his name, and then there's also one that he owns just that his wife owns just in her name. So really, even though Mike's name is on the license, this is their license. It's a joint license. And they've got these three properties, and because each property is owned differently, all they do in Hammock is they create three portfolios. And then the eagle-eyed amongst you might have already noticed that each property is assigned to a portfolio, and you can call them whatever you like. You can probably see I went for pretty obvious names. I called this one joint ownership. That one I've set up saying Mike 50%, Mary 50%. This one is obviously the one Mike owns himself, so that's Mike 100%. And this is the one Mary owns, so that's Mary 100%. But you can have as many owners, as many percentages as you need for your portfolio. Just make sure that each property is connected to the right portfolio so then Hammock knows how to split those payments. So anything that comes into 141 Corn Street, because it's in the joint ownership portfolio, will get split half to Mike's tax statement, half to Mary. Anything on this one will go to Mike. Anything on this one will go to Mary. And so let's see what that looks like. And for that, we're going to go into the tax area. And if you are using Hammock through Naked Accounting, this is probably the place Malcolm's going to be interested in. Because when he comes in here, this is where you're going to get a different tax statement for each owner who has any ownership of these properties, which in my case is just two people. And actually, you'll notice both of them have a little MTD badge. What that means is they have registered for the MTD pilot or testing phase, you might want to call it. Now, not everybody wants to join the pilot or the testing phase. I totally get that. I would always recommend it. I would feel much more confident going into MTD Go Live, knowing that I had pressed that button at least once during testing when it doesn't matter, when I can make mistakes. But I say if you register for Hammock and you're using Hammock, but you're not on the pilot, you wouldn't see these little MTD icons. If you do want to join the pilot, you can absolutely do that through Hammock, and we can talk about that separately. But let's go into Mike's tax return because even if you don't join the pilot, once we get past April, you will be in MTD and then you'll have the icon and you'll want to know how to make those submissions. So I want to show you. So let's go in and click view details. So we're just looking at Mike's tax statement here. So essentially this is Mike's 1.5 properties. Now, this is going to show the totals of Mike's 1.5 properties on this page, but you can, if you want to, you can drill down further. You can filter by property. Then you get another section that you'll only see if you're on the pilot. These are the MTD boxes. So this is your income sources. So Mike's only income source is UK property, doesn't have any foreign property, doesn't have sole trade. And by the way, we don't cover sole trade. And as Malcolm said earlier, with Naked Accounting, you'll be using Dex Solo for that. But he does have UK property, which is why he's on Hammock. And then on the right-hand side, these are the quarterly submissions or the quarterly periods and where you can make your submissions. And I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Because if I scroll down, this is the bit you would see with that. If you're not on the pilot yet, you will just see your annual figures, right? Because landlords have been using Hammock for the last 6 or 7 years to do their annual returns, not just their quarterlies. And that's what we see here for Mike. So these are all the actual boxes you would see on a tax return for UK property. Underneath that, you will see all the transactions which are making up those totals. And like almost everything in Hammock, these are all clickable. So if you get here and you're thinking to yourself, well, what is that £540 in professional fees? All you do, you just click on the box and it will update and show you underneath, and you can see these are all just my letting agent fees. And this is where you might do a little check. Have I got a payment every month? Because you'd probably expect that. Um, Also, actually, just interesting thing looking at this, you can tell straight away that this is the joint property because all of the transactions were £120, but Mike's split of those transactions is £60, with obviously the other 60 being on Mary's tax return. So that's your annual figures, but obviously I'm guessing most people here want to see the MTD submissions. So let's imagine we wanted to do a submission for Q2. Now we are about a month late because the deadline for that was November. But again, beauty of the MTD pilot, the testing phase, there are no deadlines really. There's no penalties for late submissions. So you could absolutely do this. All you would do is just click here, review and submit. And when we go through to the next screen, we're no longer looking at everything up to December, i.e. today's date. We're now just looking at Q2, which is April to October. These are the income and expense categories you will be submitting. These are the numbers you will be submitting. And again, you can click on these and see what makes them up. It can be almost like a last review step before you come down and you click here, submit quarterly update. Now, lots of landlords ask me, oh, does that mean HMRC can see my properties and my tenants and my transactions? No, they can't. This is all they see is these income and expense categories and these total numbers. Okay. And again, I guess if I'm Malcolm, I guess in this example, maybe I'm doing the submissions and I submit for Mike. What I could then also do is go back to the tax area, go into Mary's, and I could submit for Mary. So essentially, you can cover both of these clients
Yeah.
in one license and in one go. Um, so look, in terms of MTD, it is that simple. It is you just categorize your property transactions, you then let the automation kick in and do as much of it as possible. You get your breakdown per property, per tenant, everything split out by owner, so you can make those submissions. But I said at the start, we're not just an MTD platform. And so I do want to, before I finish, I do want to show you some of the additional features which I think make Hammock a real game changer for just managing your day-to-day of being a landlord. Um, and a lot of them are on the overview screen, but one I want to highlight is here. It's called the document section. Now, it sounds incredibly boring. I get that. But actually, I'd say that is probably my favorite thing on the whole of Hammock, especially with the renters' rights bill that came in recently, which I'm guessing you'd all know about. There's huge fines now if you haven't got, an in-date gas or electric certificate, for example. So many things you have to remember. In the document section, I can upload all of my important documents, link them to the right property tenant, so I can always find anything I need to. But most importantly, I'll start getting reminders from 90 days before any of my important documents expire. So I never get into that position where I've got to pay a fine because I haven't renewed my gas certificate. Um, on top of that, you can also get live property valuations straight through the platform. Let's say I wanted to go into my asset analysis, and let's take 141 Corn Street. So I've added this property and I've said I think it's worth 365,000. But let's say I want to get a new estimate. Just click here and I just tell the system what type of property it is, three-bed terrace. Click get valuation. It'll take about 3 or 4 seconds. Oh, actually, look, I was pretty close. It's coming in at 369. And by the way, if I wasn't happy with that and I was like, no, that's rubbish, I know it's 365. You don't have to take it. You can override and put your own number in. But either way, that you can get those valuations. And I think, I generally know what my properties are worth, but what I like to do is every 3 or 4 months get a new valuation just to see if the market is going up or down more than anything. And sadly for me and my properties, it seems to be going down, which is not ideal, but it's better to know than not. Um, Also, for those of you watching this where you have tenants who are not great with paying and they end up in arrears and they miss payments, this will probably be the first place you come when you log in. Which of my tenants are in arrears? You can go into the tenancy, so I can click into Robert, and I'm then met with a table showing me a full breakdown of the history of what was due, what was received. Always start bottom up. And you can see this tenancy started in April. In April, the rent due 1450, rent received 1450, no arrears. But actually, 1 month into the tenancy, he's already missed a payment, so he's fallen behind. Then the following month, he made two payments. Well, one full payment and a part payment. So he did overpay slightly, reduced his arrears. Did the same in August, brought it down to 750, but since then has only been maintaining that. So, this is just a really useful way of knowing exactly who's paid what and why. Um, jump back to the overview screen. So that's the arrears. You can also see at a glance what payments you've got coming up, which I think is useful again if you know that Robert's going to be a bit of a nightmare tenant. You might want to keep an eye on that on the 9th of January. Um, and this is actually really interesting. I don't know, I don't know how many landlords or what type of landlords are watching this or viewing this on the webinar, but I find a lot of landlords are quite passive with their properties. They've got quite a lot of money tied up in them, but they don't necessarily look at them day to day. And then suddenly you show them their yields, and they start asking all kinds of questions. When did I last put the rent up? Why is that yield so much higher than my other property? What does this investment even make sense? And truthfully, this is the demo account. So these numbers are particularly low. I think if you were looking at your Hammock account and you saw these numbers, I'd be tempted to tell you to sell all your properties, if I'm honest. You probably anything less than 6, I'd be worried. Above 8, I'd probably be start getting quite happy. But yeah, it's really interesting once you start looking at your numbers and you start thinking about things slightly differently. Um, but yeah, so I think that's probably everything I need to show you. I mean, there's obviously more going on here. Then there's other sections I could show you, but I think hopefully that's given you a really nice overview of first of all just how easy it is. Second, how easy it's going to be to comply with MTD. But thirdly, how actually this can just make your life a bit easier knowing what's going on with your properties.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. I know because obviously I'm familiar with Hammock. Nothing there was surprising me, but it is. I can tell you from our landlord clients' experiences, they just love it. They just love the whole shooting match. And uh, you're right. I mean, I think it's difficult. I mean, you're right about the fact that it's not about tax. It's not about meeting the obligations, but it just ticks all those boxes anyway. But the things about reminding you that that gas certificate is running out of date, that's just godsend, especially if you're in areas with selective licensing and HMO licenses and things. It's really, really key to be on top of all that stuff and not scrambling around in a folder on my computer. I can't seem to find it. Oh, you got it, dear? And that's not what you want. It's not what you want. James, thank you ever so much. If you have to shoot off, you're free to go. I'm going to fly through the rest of the slides. It won't take many minutes. I'd be very interested, actually, if you do stick around, if there's anything that you think is different to what you're expecting, or if it needs updating.
Yeah, no, I can stick around, and then yeah, if you've got any questions at the end, I can be around for that as well.
Okay, yeah, no, I can see Jeremy. I can see your question. I'll come to that. That's Jeremy, not James. Did I say James?
No,
Okay,
you did say Jeremy, so that's good.
Okay, good. All right, I'll switch back to my slides. Okay, here's where we were, and software works nicely. Okay, yeah. James already covered it for landlords. It's the same for landlords and for sole trades. You have to do a quarterly update, and that has to go direct to HMRC from your digital system, Hammock or Dexolo or whatever other software you should happen to choose. But what you cannot do is log into HMRC and key in any numbers. That's history. The 4 quarters have to be these quarters, January to March, April to June, and so on. If you've got a sole trade and it's VAT registered, you may say, well, those aren't my quarters. Bad luck. For MTD, you have to do those, and they're separate to the VAT filings. And then there's a year-end adjustment that goes into one filing, which brings all your personal tax data in. So, Jeremy, this is the answer to your question. Do you have to declare other income like pensions, etc.? Yes, but not through MTD. MTD is just for your self-employment and your rent. So if you've got self-employment and rent, you've got to do 8 filings, one per quarter for each of those. And then we have to do the year-end filing. It's like a tax return. It brings in all the other things. If you've got pensions, you've got dividend income, etc., etc., that all comes into this. Do bear in mind the quarterly filings, the quarterly updates, they are passing data to HMRC. James has set it out. It's just the categories and the total figures. You do not have to pay tax at those times. VAT, it's just a separate process. VAT is actually under Making Tax Digital for VAT. It has been for several years. but they're entirely separate. With VAT, if you're familiar with it, you do pay your VAT across every quarter. But for Making Tax Digital for self-assessment, there's no tax to pay on the quarterly filings. And you have to do one quarterly update for each trade and each letting business. I think we've kind of covered that. And the rules are, I have a feeling probably a lot of people may fail to comply with that. Your MTD update, not so relevant for landlords, but it has to be on a cash flow accruals basis, the same basis that you would declare in the annual filings. This is the bad news. Penalties. There's no tax to pay on the quarterly updates, but they are a legal requirement. And if you don't file them, you get penalty points. And Bruce Forsyth's line, they don't make prizes. The penalty points are on the same basis, if you're familiar with them, as the VAT Making Tax Digital point system. And 4 lates, £200. Some people may think that's a trivial amount. I know, in my experience, nobody thinks paying HMRC something for nothing is trivial. But if you've got a Making Tax Digital trade and a VAT registration and a Making Tax Digital letting, in the second year, you could be up to £3,000 in penalties, and that's just on the quarterly filings. And it depends. There will also be interest, late payment penalties, all sorts of other things as well, for if you're on VAT. But the other thing is to bear in mind, these penalties that I'm talking about here for points, for late submissions, they're going to be automatic. The revenue computer system will just spew them out. But it's not all about the quarterly filings, the quarterly updates. It is a legal requirement to keep a digital record using software. If you're found to be not keeping a digital record, the digital record keeping requirement carries a £3,000 penalty on its own, nothing to do with being late for the filings. Joy. Filings have to be for each person, they're not for each property. Joint owners, you add your share. James has already illustrated these points. These are not relevant if you're using decent software. We use Hammock. I mean, James has told you everything you need to know about that. And the joy of those softwares is you don't have to worry about the Dextolo and Hammock. You don't have to worry about, oh, have I got enough detail on this? It's being captured automatically. You really don't need to worry. Okay, some myths and preconceptions. Surely there must be some free software. There are some softwares that say they're free. I don't know if they're any good, but also usually it's free until you need to do something that you need to do, and then suddenly you find, oh, you need to pay a subscription for this. HMRC will certainly not be creating any Making Tax Digital software. A lot of people seem to think they would because they did for other things. They did for self-assessment. They will not be doing it for this. Making Tax Digital will tell you your tax bill. Well, it will estimate it. And Dext or Hammock will share that estimate with you. But it's very difficult to trust that. Even I trust everything out of Hammock apart from that number. Because it won't include pensions, dividend income, things like that are not built into those estimates. Remains to be seen how good or bad they turn out to be, but do be careful with those. For clients, we'll be helping to make sure they've got a heads up ahead of time. A lot of people saying, "Oh well, I'll think about this afterwards. I'll write the books up and I'll do what I need." But you can't. You can do it for self-assessment, but you can't do it for Making Tax Digital. And the books, the records have to be done right. The transactions booked into your system from day one. That's day one. If you're over 50,000 for rents and plus sales or fees for a sole trade, that's the 6th of April, 2026. And the books have to be there. They have to be in the software, ready for you to make your filing. The April, May, June filing for 2026, that's a compulsory thing. And there will be penalties if they're late. As James said, go in the beta. We're putting clients into the beta, the beta, the trial, the test run that HMRC are providing. There are no penalties in those. And do be aware, if you are put into Making Tax Digital, you are mandated. You will be told by HMRC that you are obliged to be in. And if you are put into Making Tax Digital for income tax, you will be taken out of self-assessment. You cannot do, when I say there's a year-end filing, that's a filing through as a year-end update, it's called. It's not a self-assessment tax return. There are technical reasons in the background. Once you come out of, you're in self-assessment, you're in one HMRC system. Once you're mandated into Making Tax Digital, you're in a new, more modern computer system at HMRC. You cannot do Making Tax Digital filings through one system and then do a self-assessment return. The year-end update will look pretty much like a self-assessment tax return in a lot of substance, but it is a different system. What do you need to do? Headlines. Take some advice. Do contact us if you want to. Details coming up in a moment. But don't take advice from the man down the pub. Don't take advice from somebody else who's had a look at a web page and they think they know what needs doing. Manage your records. You just do need to have systems. I just can't stress that enough. And use software solutions. Don't think, oh, I'll keep some records and I'll work out what I need to do when the time comes. You have to have your software in place. If you're in the first wave and you're mandated from the 6th of April 26, you have to have your software live 6th of April 2026. I do have some questions from previous webinars, but I won't take up time. Obviously, with the James great demo. I don't want to take everybody's time. It's quite late on an evening, and I'm sure people have got better things to do. These QR codes. I was trying to think of a description of them. These things, if you hold your phone up with the camera icon to those images, they will take you to these web pages that will help you to look up some of the background on this. We're hoping, we've not arranged it yet, but we're hoping to have a somewhat similar demo from somebody at Dext for Dext Solo in an upcoming webinar. We're running these webinars more or less once a month. So January is tax return season for the old self-assessment returns, but we'll be running one then and February and March. And
Malcolm, just quick, I can see that there's a question in the chat saying, can somebody like play with Hammock without like fully signing up? And I guess worth saying on that link that Malcolm was just sharing. So if you go to our website, usehammock.com, you can register, and we offer all landlords a 30-day free trial because we know that most people want to try before they buy. So you get full access and you can try everything you like for 30 days. You can cancel any time and never pay a penny. But yes, if you are interested in just sort of giving it a go, I suspect you'll love it. We do also offer free training. It's included as well, which you can join. We run multiple sessions a week.
Yeah, so and the training is good. I can vouch for that. And if you go live and are a naked accounting client, well, we handhold as well. But I think I'm sure, James, you'd say that some people feel they need help in the setup, but once it's running, they really don't need any help at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, starting anything new, 'cause you don't really know. I think, to be honest, even just seeing the demo I did today will make, you probably generally wouldn't need training. But it's there if you need it. Some people would like, just like to have that confidence that there will be somebody there if they need help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the guys at Hammock, I've been talking to Hammock for years. I can't recommend it highly enough. But I can tell you, James, I'm sure this is right. From your extensive experience, what landlord clients really like is that they put the property details in and suddenly it's already populating. It's not like you've got to key everything in.
Yeah.
Then the picture comes up and they run through the setup screens and think, oh, actually that didn't take very long.
Yeah, because the one thing I didn't show on here, because it doesn't work as nicely in a demo, is what the onboarding looks like. And actually, when you run through, it kind of takes you through step by step. So you add your property, you add your tenant, it then searches your bank feed to find the transaction. So I was kind of doing everything for somebody who is already set up. But yeah, it really does guide you through step by step.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the feedback we've had from clients using Hammock is uniformly incredibly positive.
That's great to hear.
Uh, and this is us. That's another QR code. If you hold your camera up to that, I'll leave it on the screen. I know it's really annoying when people run webinars and put the QR code up not for long enough. So I'll leave it there for a moment. Um, uh, we've actually got two offices at the moment. That's one that's listed there. The other is in Market Bosworth, which is where I'm sitting today. But we are a digital only firm in the sense that all our clients are using digital systems of one sort or another. And I was talking to a client yesterday, different area entirely of tax. He's in Edinburgh. Don't worry where you are. You don't need to be in Leicester or Bosworth. Okay, James, listen, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully it's given a few people a real insight into kind of what they may be worrying about, and actually it's nothing to worry about, is it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
That's great. Thank you ever so much. Okay, I'll stop the share and I'll just say goodbye. And anybody got any questions? If you missed the QR code, we're easy to find it on the web. And look forward to hearing from you. So thanks very much, everybody.